Black people don't hope. We wish. We wish a motherfucker would be in our shit.
As far as I'm concerned, they could burn this bitch to the ground. And it still wouldn't be enough. And they are lucky that what black people are looking for is equality and not revenge.
What up, y'all? Welcome to the Daily Sip. We here, baby. Hope y'all feeling good. All right, so let's get into today's political mess. Let's try to make some sense of it. Low caffeine or, a cocktail, whatever you need to get through today, all right? I'm your host, Marlissa Collier. I go by I Drink Politics. And again, this is the Daily Sip. So today, let me tell y'all, my glass is pretty full. We got a lot going on, so I'm gonna need a lot to get through it. All right, so let's go on and hop in. First things first, did y'all hear about this whole The Atlantic, right? The news publication, The Atlantic, right? And their editor, who was apparently and allegedly added to a secret text thread that included like a bunch of bigwig national security officials. Okay, so somehow he gets added to this entire thread. And so according to him, he starts getting information from this text thread about the impending Houthi attack that the U.S. was going to end up carrying out, right? So at first he was like, nah, I think it may be a mistake. He wasn't really sure. This was all happening on Signal, by the way. I want to point that out. All right, so he's on there with a bunch of, big wigs when it comes to defense, including like, Vice President Vance, Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, the president himself. And so he says that he starts to get like all of this information about the impending attacks, right, against the Houthi rebels in Yemen. If you're not aware why we even over there messing around, it's because Yemen has been standing on business when it comes to Gaza. Since this whole thing started, Yemen been big boots, black air forces on the ground, them my people. So, of course, the United States doesn't like that. Israel doesn't like that. So, we've been firing on them. So they're talking about this whole thing in a text thread, right? A Signal thread. I just want to point that out, that major national security decisions are being made in group chats. I don't want to hear nothing else about how much women talk and how we talk. I don't want to hear it no more. All right, so he's in this group and he's like, all right, I'm not really sure if it's a thing. Come to find out it is a thing, because according to him, the attacks that were that actually took place were immediately in line with what he was reading from these text threads. So it was just absolutely crazy. It was absolutely crazy. He's saying that other people in the group were the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, as well as the CIA director, John Radcliffe. So again, these are big wigs. Now, what's even funnier about this whole situation, y'all, and nothing's funny about it, right? Like, the world is at war. So let me be clear and saying, like, nothing's actually funny about this. But one thing that I found kind of humorous was that when Trump was asked about it, he said, I don't even know who that is. I'm not even sure who this journalist is. Then he went on to attack the publication as a whole, saying that, he doesn't really like The Atlantic. It's a failing magazine that's getting ready to go out of business. And that, he's not sure where they got this information from. I know nothing about it. And my favorite part of the entire interaction with these journalists who were questioning him about how this random journalist even got added to this text thread. My favorite thing that he said is, you're saying they had what? Like, if that ain't gaslighting, like, you ever tried to, call somebody on some shit and they'll just completely act like they don't know what you're talking about, or they'll try to bring in like these random details to just try to prolong certain parts of the conversation. Like, Trump is really good at doing that. Instead of focusing on the thing that you're asking him about, he'll be like, yeah, so you said what color was his pants again? Because I've never seen anybody that has those colored pants on. Like, I don't understand why. And instead of like, going towards the thing you've asked him, he'll derail you for minutes at a time, probably to try to, come up with his answers. But yeah, Lot going on. All right. So a couple another quick shots. Get it? Because the daily sip. A few other things that are going on. So Columbia University, we've all heard, what's happening there with their funding being snatched, and then maybe now it'll be given back because they came into compliance and made a bunch of concessions with the Trump administration. But let's talk a little bit about what's happening there. First of all, ICE has been running rampant on that campus, right? I mean, Columbia has absolutely been a target. And this is from, a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago, when we were constantly having these congressional hearings with presidents of Ivy League institutions. And a lot of these people, I was going to say women, because a few of them were, women. There was the one Black woman, right? At Harvard University, who was absolutely and utterly just flogged in public. But Columbia has certainly been the center of our attention recently. We had Mahmoud Khalil, who was actually arrested, taken into custody and detained by ICE agents while he was entering his building, like his housing at Columbia University. He was going in and he was arrested and taken out of the state, actually, crazy enough, into Louisiana. We've also seen just a number of students who have had their degrees either, reneged on is the best way I could put it. Like, they've earned the degrees, but somehow, Columbia is saying, yeah, you may have earned it, but it doesn't mean anything anymore. We've had people who were completely put out of the school, completely removed, right, and dismissed from the school, from teaching positions. So Columbia they've just really, I think, been made an example of recently. What I find interesting, though, is that if it's happening to Columbia, it's going to start happening at other universities, right? Columbia was not the only university that had pro-Palestinian encampments, right? This was happening all over the country. Let's call it what it is. It was actually happening all over the world. And so, Columbia is one of those universities that's supposed to be pulling the best of us, right, from around the world. And so I think that's one of the reasons that it's being targeted. It's being targeted because it's always been set up as kind of like this beacon when it comes to higher learning. And now they can say, hey, shut up and dribble, right? Shut up and go study, because if not, even the greatest amongst you, right? Even the smartest amongst you can be touched. So yeah, the latest there is they may be getting back their $400 million in funding that they had lost because they were not in, and I quote, compliance. I heavily quote compliance with the things that the Trump administration asked for, one of which was a demand that it put its Middle Eastern, African, and South Asian Studies Department under academic receivership for a minimum of 5 years. A minimum of 5 years. When you think about the things that are being attacked in this country, they're so pointed. They are so incredibly pointed. There are so many other places that, you can do something about. We got school shootings. We got kids that, are unhappy and depressed and, committing suicide. We have an issue with our chronic disease in this country. Wealth inequality is only getting worse. The price of eggs ain't improved at all. It's actually gotten worse. I don't know when the last time y'all been to the store. There's so many things that we could be taking care of, but instead, we are spending our time on these things that are meant to make more empathetic human beings. One of the things I always loved about reading when I was a kid was that it allowed me to step in someone else's shoes. It allowed me to see into someone else's psyche and their mind and their imagination. And I thought that was so interesting because they were telling stories about things that I had never experienced. And I thought it was so cool. Like, I grew up in a place where, I didn't get to experience a lot because my family was poor and you just kind of stayed in your bubble, right? But to know that I had these stories that I could go read and they would just take me out of that place were so cool. But the added benefit, and one that I didn't really count on, was that I would gain empathy for other people who I probably would never meet, right? I would never meet these authors. I would never meet the subjects of their stories, but I had a little more understanding about their lives and who they were and their backgrounds. And I thought that was so cool. So when you start to take away things like history, and specifically the histories of people that don't look like you, right? When you no longer allow access for that, it just continues to divide us. And I would go so far, and let me put my conspiracy hat on right now. I would go so far to say that may be the purpose, right? And it's going to take us into our kind of third topic for the day. But I would go so far as to say that actually may be the purpose. Like, what if, take a drink. What if the whole goal is so that we do stop talking to one another? Right? The internet and technology has closed our proximity. We used to be so separated, so spread out, so that, it's easy to hate Johnny if you don't know Johnny, right? It's easy to do that. But if you know his stories, if you get a chance to learn something about his mother and his upbringing, and it's kind of hard to hate that, right? Now, there's going to be people who's just not your cup of tea, sure. But it's kind of hard to hate a group of people that you begin to learn something about. And I think that's one of the main issues that the powers that be are having. When you go back in history, and you realize very quickly that poor white people were weaponized, right? They were weaponized against others, against blacks, against immigrants, against natives, all of that. And what they were told was, hey, I know you're not a billionaire yet. I know you're not a millionaire yet, but at least you're not that. And they pointed over to us and were just like, see, and that is the reason you're not a millionaire, because we keep letting all these immigrants in our country, because these women are in the workforce, because these gays are able to get married. They were weaponizing this class of people who wanted to be wealthy, who were taught that they were supposed to be inherently because they were white, but they were just poor for right now. And the reason they were poor for right now was because of those people. And so they used them, right, to keep up a lot of shit amongst us. You'll find very quickly in history when you read that a lot of shit you hear about, lynchings and black men being chased down, in trucks and shit, that was happening at the hands of poor white people. You didn't see no very wealthy, masters of industry running down, black people off the road and shit like that. Now they had their systemic shit, right? But there was no face-to-face crime going on with the wealthy. It was always poor whites that were used to do that bidding, right? And so all of a sudden, technology and social media in particular, it allowed us to talk to one another. It allowed us to get a little closer. And now you have this, I would say 2 at least generations of people who are like, hey, I actually don't want to be a racist. Like, I get it. Like, I actually like soul food. Like, I like the 2-step. I like Mexican food. I like, you know what I mean? I like Indian music, all of that. And that means that they can no longer leverage that group to hate us. So it is my conspiracy. It really is. I wore this hat on purpose for a reason today. It's my conspiracy that that's one of the reasons why they're snatching all of this shit out of these schools and banning books. Wanting to ban TikTok, right? Don't want us talking to each other, all of that. And that's what we're seeing at the end of the day with Columbia University. They are making enemies out of these people who came to this country to do something better for themselves. And, as a consequence, doing something good for the university and the country. They are creating enemies out of them and then justifying the entire story because they need to get a certain group back in check. And that takes me to my final point that I wanted to make for the day. A lot of people have been online talking about this whole segregation thing. I've been having a good time with it. It's funny as fuck. It's funny as hell. But here's the thing. I put this video up the other day and I was like, yo, this is the ultimate fuck around and find out. Now, on the side of black people, right, you have black people who, you know, during Jim Crow looked over to the other side of the tracks and was like, damn, they got nice shit over there. Like, why don't we have that? Right? And the thought process, the psyche at the time was, if I could just get over there, I would have access to the same shit. I would be equal, right? I could get the jobs that they have. I could get the house that they have, all of that. And what they were trying to do, but kind of missed the mark on, they were trying to get equality. And they thought that that equality was going to come by being together. Right? Because it was always supposed to be separate but equal. We know that that wasn't the truth. So they figured, well, if we can close the separation up, maybe we'll get equal. What black people found out very quickly was that not only did they not have, you know, full access to that world, right? But the opportunities were not actually equal over there either. So you close the gap, you get over there, and all of a sudden, you know, you got people burning crosses on your lawn because you moved into their neighborhood, or you're being passed over for the promotion time and time again, even though you're overqualified. So not only did black people have to deal with being in proximity and integrated and unequal, but then they also had to deal with the microaggressions that came with being in such proximity. And this is one of the things that we talk about, right? This is why it's so emotionally and mentally and spiritually draining to be in certain spaces, because it's all a role that we've had to play because we've all been together. We put on this air of, yeah, we're all together, we're, you know, equal, but obviously we know that's not the truth. But we can't say that thing, right? Lest it may ruin my chances at some sense of equality while I'm over on this side. And this is why black people are celebrating so much and joking so much about the thought of segregation, because it was proven that coming together did not create equality. And so what black people were saying is, well, maybe if we separate again and y'all leave us alone, we can actually create what we've needed to create for ourselves. Because it's obvious we're not getting it over here, and I have to deal with all this other shit, right? The social discomforts of being on this side. Now, on the other side, kind of goes back to the last story. You know, you have white people that was like, yeah, y'all come over here, sure. Not a problem. What happened was, though, we got over there and we started making friends. And we start talking to people, and we start inviting them to the cookout, right? And they start realizing, like, damn, we actually having a good time over here. We are actually having a blast. So not only do we got to get rid of the books that's telling those stories and these classes that's teaching these kids those stories, now we got to separate y'all. You know how you used to be in class and you was talking too much and your teacher would be like, hey, you come sit up here by me. That's what our leaders are doing. They need to separate you fools. They got to separate y'all. Y'all talk too much. Report card says talks too much. So yeah, that's sadly what we have. And that's our daily sip, man. All right. Well, y'all go mix you up a drink. I don't know, read something about the filibuster or whatever. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all that to the Daily Sip. And I'll see y'all later.
Wish the best, I wish that and all the rest. Sometimes I wonder if I felt more at home in my own skin instead of always feeling fake. But my genuine moments stop feeling off and out of place. And my smile seems strange. I walk like I'm trying on a wig, or a mask, or a laugh, or a face, or a faith in my place in this path. But so I'm trying to change that and live inside the moment, not the past. See the present unwrapped, cause the moment's all we have, till it's gone. I'm just waiting, hoping the next one go last a little longer.